As soon as I open it, roaches. To where when I walked in the house,
did you scream?
You don't know my life, bro.
Welcome back to Econics Talks, guys.
When I pop up, everybody gonna be like, man, overnight success.
Lifestyle topics, entrepreneurship, and investing.
Are you serious about this? Because if you are, then I'm willing to back the business.
We want to inform you, educate you, and empower you so that you can maximize your life. Let's get started. What's up, everybody? I want to give a huge shout out to all the new supporters that have joined us this year, and I can never forget my day one, so shout out to y'all too. As most of you guys know, running an independent podcast takes a ton of time and energy. Now, if you ever benefited from an episode of this show or mini episodes and you'd like to support, you can do that by buying us a coffee. You can reach that by the support link in the show notes, or if you're following me or Econics on Instagram, it'll be in the link in the bio. And this will be used to cover any expenses that come with the show. I appreciate everything you guys have done, and this has been such a fulfilling year. Now, on to this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Econics Talks, guys. We have a guest here today. This is Cedric Nash, again, the millionaire mentor. He has a book out. We've already talked about it. Why should white guys have all the wealth? So what we want to talk about, actually, you know what? Ced, what's up, man? How you doing today? Good morning.
Hey, man, I'm doing great. I'm doing
great. You drink
great.
coffee?
Huh?
You drink coffee?
You know, I'm a decaf drinker. I can't take the caffeine. It's
Okay.
funny. I can take the caffeine in regular soda, but in coffee, it makes me jittery.
It's different.
Yeah. It's different.
Yeah. So obviously we had you on the show a month ago. And so we had a chance to talk about your book. You're on a book tour right now. So I'm glad to have you back again. So we want to kind of take a deeper dive into your story. All right. So first question I have for you this morning is, what was your biggest challenge when you started your business, and what did you do to overcome that?
Yeah, my biggest challenge was keeping myself positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the hardest part, is keeping me up, because, it started at a time when I was leaving my German business partners, and I was really upset about how they were treating me, because I kind of helped build the company up, and I did not sign the partnership agreement. So they took the partnership away. And so that was a blessing and a curse, because had I signed it, they would have prevented me from, they were lawyered up. They would have prevented me from starting my business, because I would have been violating a non-compete. So, it just so happened that I didn't sign it, and I'm glad I didn't. But it was scary. I just had, my twin boys, and my wife was pregnant with my third kid, and just a lot of pressure and having to start the business. And I was angry. I was mad at them for treating me the way they did. They sent me a letter. What happens? I got to my house in Southern California, and I get this letter after actually just seeing them, basically telling me that they're going to take my share options away and relegate me to an employee. And I was just like, after I built this company up, I couldn't do it. So I was livid, but it did fuel me to get going. But it was a very, very lonely period. I never forget those moments. I never forget what those moments felt like, trying to get the business started with really no support. And, but I did it. I hung in there and I figured it out.
How long was that process of a dark period, would you say?
Well, one of the things that happened is that when I left, I worked a deal out with them that they would pay me for all the deals that I basically had going in the company. So then I had like $20,000 a month coming from them. Plus, I was finishing up an assignment in Connecticut with IBM, and it was working through them. So I was consulting. Sometimes I would get on assignments, since the situation, bring more soldiers to the party and then exit out the door, right? So that was my game plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that client, after I got there, I realized they had already a group of people that already had better relationships, and there was no opportunity for me to expand there. So I could only build myself there. So when that assignment ended, I was like, I'm going to go back and focus on my business. And but at the same time, I was focusing on my business because I was trying to get consultants on working for me. And I remember that I was working on a consultant that I had found an opportunity through IBM and I was working it. And all of a sudden, IBM decided they didn't want the deal, but the client had already selected my consultant. So what I did is I did an end around IBM. They gave me the contact and I got my consultant placed with them. I'll never forget that feeling of getting that first consultant place. His name was David Ducraves, the guy from South Africa. And man, it felt amazing, right? It felt amazing because it was almost like validation that I could do this thing.
Right.
I'll never forget me getting the news and me, driving from the San Francisco airport over to Oakland and just really, really feeling like I was going to make it happen. So yeah, it was a good feeling, because at the time I was burning my own money and I was consulting and I had no other guys billing under my company.
Mm-hmm.
So, you felt like confident that you could do it. You knew all the pieces of the puzzle, but this was validation.
And I've had similar experiences in my own life where it comes to, like, everybody has a level, a ceiling, an invisible ceiling. And then when you work, you're like, I don't know if I can do this. And like you said, you got them placed, and that was the belief, that was the breakthrough. That ceiling became a floor, because it was like, all right, I did it. And it was just like proving to yourself, because I feel like as entrepreneurs, it's not, a lot of times we believe we can do it. Like, it's not that, oh, I believe I can do this. I know I can do it. But it's more or less like, okay, is my plan going to work? Like,
exactly.
Am I intelligent enough for this plan to work without it crashing? Because that's ultimately what you have to trust as the entrepreneur, because you don't have anybody else to validate you other than your own success. And that, and even at that, even some failures, like you said, some failures are necessary, so definitely have had similar experiences, maybe not at that level, but I know what that, it's like, man, it's addicting. It's like winning a championship game. And you sit in the car, you start, I'm talking about me, man. I start screaming. I'm like, exactly. Yeah. Nobody can understand those private moments of just bliss by yourself, because it's personal. This is a personal journey. So I love to hear that. Next question for you. So what are some of your business philosophies that have contributed to your success? So I like to call these like rules to the game. So what rules to the game do you have?
Well, relationships rule, right? That's it. It's like you have to do everything you possibly can for your client. You have to make their job easier. You have to solve the problems that they need solving. And as a result, they'll keep you around. So that's one of the most important things. And that, so I learned that from two perspectives, from a positive perspective and a negative perspective, because I'll never forget, one of the first assignments I did under my company was with Panasonic, I'm sorry. Nabisco was the second one, but Panasonic. And there was a gentleman there that I didn't like. He really didn't know what he was talking about. And he had his chest sticking out like he knew what he was doing, but he was still new to the system that we were implementing. And I had experience with it. I did it working for Deloitte, Ernst & Young. And so I had hands-on experience. I was coming from my German company where we did it often for HP, for all these different companies. And these guys didn't know this guy didn't know what he was doing. And I made sure that every single chance I got to let him know that he didn't know that I knew that he didn't know what he was doing, I did that. Didn't realize that this guy had the right connection though. So my client and this gentleman were kind of at the same level, but he was more on the infrastructure system side, but he had a closer relationship with the chief information officer, the head guy over IT. I mean, he would take him out to strip clubs, smoke cigars with them. He just had this great relationship with them. So then this guy ends up later down the line running a big part of the operation. And he didn't really necessarily like me because I was a little arrogant and I had coverage from my client, which was a sister who ended up being like my big sister. So I didn't have to basically show him much respect. Right. So as time went on, this guy, rises kind of to the top, so to speak. And he had enough power to create opportunities for me that could have had me retiring a whole lot sooner. Right. But because I did not respect his relationship with him, it cost me. So I learned that, as a consultant, as a person that provides services to businesses, you have to have a pleasing personality to everybody, even people that you don't like, people you like and people you don't like, because you never know. And this is a relationship business. So what happens is all these contacts that you make, they never go away, because as their career moves and traverses to different companies at different levels, they are still a relationship. So that was one of the things I learned, and that I share with other people, that, relationships are king, and they're hard to develop. It's hard to develop that sense of trust. And once you break in, you don't want to damage that trust. You've got to always deliver. You got to always be credible. You got to always do the right thing. Sometimes you have to fall on your own sword just to basically maintain that relationship, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, that's a lesson that I'm trying to learn, man. As I grow in my own business and entrepreneurship, I've heard different philosophies on business as it relates to like people and dealing with people, because my background's from retail, and I've had customers toss credit cards at me across the table and just this stuff, and so, and me personally, I'm like, I'm a black man, I ain't gonna take no disrespect, like get the hell out of here with that. But then somebody challenged me on that. It was like, yo, like, why are you getting so angry? Why are you so angry at them? Like, you're allowing them to control your business. And so I started to like take that into account. Now, I ain't gonna lie. I still have a line. There's a line that you just don't disrespect. I could deal with a lot of things, but at certain levels, don't cross. Mm-hmm. But respectfully, as I've grown just a little bit, I've been more patient and understanding with just disagreeable clients, disagreeable people who aren't necessarily the best and easiest to deal with. Because at the end of the day, I've just kind of taken a step back and say, all right, like, what's the end goal here? Right.
Oh, yeah.
What are my goals here? I got to get out of my ego. And, I've had to check myself and my ego. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneur men, we got egos, man. Men, we come equipped with it. And so check that ego, man, because if not, like, you giving up dollars, you giving up relationships and all kind of stuff. Why? Because you can't get out of your own way. And so for me,
the reality is a paying client is always right.
And money talk. That money talk. Exactly. Yeah. So I love that, man. I love that. Just humbling experiences. Next question for you. So after more than 20 years in this industry, what are some of the habits that you develop that kind of keeps you in focus, keeps you productive? Because I know at times, like, so I look at a guy like you, right? Like, you've been in this industry for some years. You built businesses, not one, you built businesses. So now you have to like maintain all of that. Right. But at this level, like, you have to have a certain lifestyle. So that's what I'm trying to get into. So what are some of those habits that you develop?
Well, the one of the most common habits is I wake up early. Yeah, I usually wake up sometimes at 4 o'clock, sometimes at 3, sometimes at 5, but it's usually early. Mm-hmm. And usually I wake up early because I have some things on my mind that I need to get out. So it's either I'm writing emails or writing down a list of things I need to accomplish for the day. So I think that's the most important thing, is to wake up having a list of tasks that you want to complete within that day, right? It's so important. And when you're managing so many things, it gets that much more important because everything has a list, right? So just to give you an idea, I've got apartment buildings. That has a list, right? I've got commercial construction projects I'm working on. That has a list, right? I've got commercial projects or buildings that I currently own, that has a list of things that keep it moving. I got my business, right? And then also I own a yacht, and I could do my yacht charters, that have a list, that has a list. And I got my book stuff, that has a list, got the speaking engagements, so there's just list upon list upon list. The only way you can keep up with it is that you have to keep writing lists. And I have an assistant that works with me on one side of the business and an assistant that works with me on the other side.
So you mean to tell me I'm not crazy to have I have 3 different books that I write lists in, and oh man, so I'm not alone. Cool. All right.
Yeah. That's the only way you can stay on top of it. And you're still going to fall short.
Yes.
But it's so important. And to wake up with a very, very focused agenda. And the other thing is making time to take care of your body, take care of your eating and stuff like that. Because, your body's got to support you. And as you get older, what happens is we work at such a level, at such a stretch level, and we don't know how dangerous that stress level is. It feels natural to us. And then you find out that guys at a certain age, I'm 58 years old. There's guys, sometimes you're hearing in their 40s and their young 50s that are having heart attacks, right? Because they're overstressed, but they don't know it because they're operating, at a certain level. Right. So you've got to be able to take care of your body, take care of yourself. But also you have to have downtime. I like to I may get up early, but I may stop working really at about 5 or 6 o'clock. And half the time I'm sitting in my backyard listening to Afro beats, just chilling, right?
You're sounding like my therapist. He told me, he said, because the things that you're discussing are things that I kind of like struggle with, and this is a podcast, but I like to be transparent as well. One of my biggest hurdles that I've been trying to figure out and grow through, like just grow through it is being able to maintain a certain stamina, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at what I do, right? I'm good at that. I got that part. But it's like, all right, like how am I able to do this over a longer period of time? Like, how can I extend that time out? And so I hear you talk about like the list. I do all of that, right? But then it's just, but then you said you will always fall short. And I'm like, damn it. Because like that's in my mind. I'm like, man, I gotta be perfect. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. Right. And it's just like, all right, so how in the world do I maintain all of that? Because I manage a bunch of stuff too. I got ADD like crazy.
Yeah. That's the world that we're in. And plus, with social media and our phones and stuff popping up all the time, we can't, it's hard to kind of stay focused.
Yeah.
Because you got so many things popping up, in your mind. But that's part of the journey, man.
It is. And I've learned to embrace that, just be more open to like the challenges. It's crazy how life works. I've been reading this book by Sadhguru called The Inner Me. And it's just dealing with like the person on the inside and talking about peace and dealing with entrepreneurship and at any aspect, like not focusing on, the end of the month goals where you got to hit your quotas, but more or less like what does your day-to-day look like, right? Like that time that you're going to put in on a day, like your task list, that gets you going. So just constantly reminding myself to stay in rhythm, keep going, stay in rhythm, because the rhythm is what kind of just that compounds. Yeah. So creating that energy is real, man. So follow-up question to that. So now you're managing all of these different things. So how do you prioritize it? How do you figure out, all right, this needs to go first, this needs to go second?
It's kind of hard. I mean, it's almost like, everything typically has deadlines. And so you always focus on the things that have to get done first, right? But sometimes you have to create your own deadlines, like because you're, for various reasons. Either, I'll give you an example. Either if I don't take care of this, I'm spending money on this, and this thing has to make money. So, for example, I have a couple of construction projects. I bought this building maybe 2 years ago, and the property taxes are about $38,000 a year. You get what I mean? Even though I pay cash for the building, the property taxes and then keeping the utilities up, it's like, hey, I'm burning money. I've got to convert that into income. So sometimes you have to say, okay, I've got to make this a priority, or else it's going to be problematic. So you kind of focus on the things that need to get done soonest. And one of my rules of thumbs is closest to cash. What opportunity gets me closer to generating income out of it? Oh. And so if I could do these 2 or 3 tasks and get that thing profitable, then that kind of dominates where I focus my energy. And then sometimes there are dates, like meaning that you've got events or various things where you need to have things done by, and that kind of dictates. So it's either, a timeline, based on deadlines, or it's based on closest to cash.
I like that. That's a very simplified way to approach that. All right, how can I quickly get to the bag? Like, what's the quickest way to get from A to B when it relates to money?
Especially if you're burning money out your bag.
Right. You're gonna figure it out real quick. Like, all right, I'm tired of spending my own money. I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Next question. So how do you approach your risk taking? How do you approach your risk taking decisions in business?
It's like I approach them like playing a chess match. I'm not sure if you play chess or not, but
not a lot, but I understand it a little bit.
Right. But when you play chess, sometimes you're going to have to give up some valuable pieces in order to win the game. And so when you give up valuable pieces, you have to evaluate it as to, if I put, this rook or this bishop or this queen here, and I put it in jeopardy, I'm only doing it because it's going to create another opportunity or a better opportunity on the other side. Right. And so that's how I look at risk. I try not to take one-sided risk. I don't take risks where that, I look at it that if I win, then it's great. But what if I do this and something doesn't work out? What's my backup? I'll give you a quick example. So I'm building salon studios, and I bought buildings where I'm doing it. I bought land where I'm going to build some even in Tampa. And so you say, well, what if all of a sudden you decide you don't want to do it anymore? Or what if all of a sudden you get some information that causes pause, and you say, well, this may not make sense. Well, because I own the land, I can always sell it. You get what I mean? So I and sell it and not lose money on it. Or I could always lease the land out or do whatever. So whatever move I make, I always make sure that there's 2 or 3 plays, right? There's 2 or 3 opportunities behind it. So that if my first plan doesn't work, then I have a backup plan. And so it's really more manage risks, not gambling, right? See, the difference is that when people gamble and they speculate based on stuff that they're anticipating something's going to happen, if they only have one way of winning, they only have one path to winning, that's a gamble.
Yeah.
All right. I look for 2 or 3 paths of winning before I basically move out in a particular direction. Even when I went into my yacht chartering business, okay, I bought the yacht because I want to enjoy it. But the other piece is that, yeah, yachts are expensive. And the other piece is I can charter it and make money for it to lower my costs. And then if worse fails, I can freaking sell it, right? And get rid of it. So I always look at that as opposed to if I bought something that if I sold it, I could, there's no real value. Like when you buy a car often, it degrades in value pretty quickly. Yeah, you could sell it, but often you're going to sell it for less than what you paid for it, and you're going to have a little piece left over, until it's paid for. But if you buy a yacht, 9 times out of 10, the value of the yacht is going to maintain itself for a while. And if you put a big down payment on it, like I do, at least I'll get some of my money back. I won't lose it all, and I can find another way to make it up. And that's also another way the way that I play the stock market. You can always make it up. A lot of people look like, oh, I invested in this and the thing went down, and they get upset or they get frustrated. But they're taking the wrong mindset towards the market, because you can always find another stock that can make up your loss. And that's the name of the game.
Preach. You don't go broke taking profits.
Huh?
You don't go broke taking profits.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, exactly. So that kind of thing. So it's just a philosophy about investing and about how to manage money. Name of the game is to keep it going up, and invariably you're going to have opportunities, or you're going to have they're going to run into situations where it doesn't go up, but that doesn't mean that it's over. You just move it into something else that could take it to the next level.
Yeah, it's all about, the rule of thumb for me is don't liquidate an asset unless you have somewhere to put the money. If you're gonna liquidate something and have a plan for it, don't just out here. People now look at people that sell their family homes, and their mom or dad may give them a house or something, like your grandma, or when she passed something down to you, and then next thing you know, like you could have spent that 10 grand, you could have just blew it, you could have bought anything, you could have even spent it wisely, you could have paid down some credit card debt, but they like, nah, you was like, let me invest this, and you figure out how to make it grow. And so, you talk about people and get mad about losing their money in the market. I think people like that don't understand long-term investing. They don't understand like this week, the market's down, or the market may be down because, the Fed just talked about keeping things tight, talking about interest.
Yeah, I think it's more of a factor of they don't have a long-term vision for what they're trying to do with money, period.
Right.
Which is what I talk about in the book. It's not about, a lot of people think, oh, it's a long-term investment, but they're in their mind, they're saying, I'm going to hold this for a certain period of time, then I'll be able to cash it and spend the money. That's their philosophy. And the philosophy I'm trying to share with my book and with what I am doing is, no, the objective is to never spend the money. The objective is to spend the money that your money makes.
Right.
So the whole point is to put this money to work and to grow it and build it and put it in various types of assets to where it will grow. And then those assets are going to generate income, so you can spend the income that it creates. Like I'm investing in salon studios that are very profitable. I don't ever plan on spending my base investment. In fact, I'm hoping that I'm going to make so much cash that I'm going to get my base investment back from the income that it generates.
Right.
And then keep it moving. So it's really the philosophy that people need to understand when it comes to investing, and they've got to be patient in order to build that up to that point.
Right.
And that's the thing that really holds them back, is that they're not patient enough, and they want to buy things, and it just, it takes them a while to really, really get in position.
Yeah. And I think that comes with losing money. Like the perspective comes with losing money, making money, and just growth, like through the market, like understanding how money works and how it moves. When my whole goal, just from lack of knowledge, I didn't know I could buy a home. I wanted to buy a house for 30, right? And I didn't know that. I didn't know how easy it was, hard it was. I had no type of recollection on what that process entailed. And so I was 26 at the time, and I bought an Airbnb. I bought a house and I turned it into an Airbnb. And so ultimately for me, like going through that process it was definitely, it was a risk, but it wasn't crazy. Like you said, it was a managed investment. I had option A, this don't work out. All right. Yep. Option B, rent it. Option C, I live in that thing and get a roommate. I'm gonna figure it out. So I had all of these contingencies, but as the Airbnb business shifted and changed, so did I. And Nash kind of was like, all right, real estate don't move fast. Real estate doesn't move. I was like, this isn't easy. Like, this isn't like, oh, I can just go get another house. Because what people don't understand is, so at my level, right? So you and I are at different levels, which means income levels. So at that time, let's say I buy a house. What people don't realize is if I buy another house, I can't buy any more houses because now I'm tapped out. My debt to income ratio is too high. Right. Because you still got to be able to, the bank has to say, hey, you can afford this. So if you don't have enough assets or anything to show that I can afford this, you ain't gonna get a loan. And so people are like, oh, just build it up, build it up, build it up. It's like, it doesn't work like that. It takes time. And so that's what kind of forced me to take a step back and be like, all right, real estate's a good play, but it's definitely long-term, long-term play. So my question to you is, I know you talked about the salons. What types of businesses do you invest in as it relates to real estate? And I'll parlay that question into something else, a part two. So now I know you have the real estate, right? The second part of that question is, what are some types of businesses that you would open up in your real estate investments that make it more marketable and profitable?
Yeah, well, if you look at I have an office building where my staff works, but part of that office building, it's like a little small complex, about 11,000 square feet, but I've got 1,600 square feet of it dedicated to salon studios. And that thing generates 10 grand a month. And I got another sector of the building, like 11 offices that I lease out to to businesses, small businesses. And I'm creating a little podcast room that I could charge out by the hour that people can go use and do their podcasts or do whatever within their time frame. And I have space for my staff. And then my property management team is there. So yeah, I like properties that you can chop into small pieces because you make more profit on the smaller pieces.
Right.
So in addition to that, I have vacation rentals. So I've got 2 condos in the Dominican Republic that I rent out as a vacation rental. I've got 2 condos in Miami that they rent out as vacation rentals on the beach, and those do very, very well. And then, I have like apartment buildings up in New Jersey and DC. They're mixed use. So they got stores on the bottom floor and apartments above. So just kind of stuff like that, and that I do. But I'm really moving into, like I said, I bought some land. I bought about 2 pieces of land that I'm building salon studios from scratch. And I have one building I bought recently, 16,000 square foot building. I'm turning into 69 salon studios. And I love salon studios because these businesses make money.
Yeah.
And they make money on a regular basis. They already have a clientele. I'm just providing them a canvas to do their artistry with or in. And so we're putting together a really high-end salon studios. Unlike the others, they're going to have a multi-purpose room that I'll rent out. So if they want to have events, they have an event space in there. It's just a great business. And I'm also doing some things where the stylist will have like a storefront. So what happens is 54 of these, people can walk in because it's all glass on the front all the way around, top and bottom. So they can walk right into their studio like they're at a storefront, but it's just one little studio in it. And they can put their name, their brand on the window. That gives them a more sense of ownership. Right. So yeah, we're doing those kinds of things. Most of my salon studios have windows where my competitors, they're kind of locked into the closet, so to speak. They have a few with windows and the rest they're inside of they're kind of in a maze.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that I do. And I'll continue to do those up to a certain point. But as like I said, I'm getting older and wiser, and I don't want to work the rest of my life. I kind of set up my situation to where the income from my real estate covers my lifestyle, my investment cash and all that kind of stuff will continue to grow in the market. And when I'm all done, I have assets I can pass on to my kids that can then take it to the next level. I just think that sometimes we get so worked up, and as we get older and older, we're still trying to hustle, we're still trying to chase that thing.
Mhm.
And I think that, uh, liking to my book, you have to define what that thing is for you. And fortunately, I've done that for me. And so I'm just striving. I'm almost at that point where I can sit back and enjoy, the fruits of my labor and just focus on exercising, staying in shape, eating well, and being able to take it so I can live a long, prosperous life, right? And give back.
Right. I love that. I love that. So I know you mentioned some international plays there. I've been fortunate enough to do some international business, but it didn't pan out the way I wanted it to. So definitely some lessons learned there. I did some business in Ghana, didn't necessarily, work out, like I said, but what's been your experience? I know you said you bought some property over there in DR. So how is that just overall? What's been your take on just doing business internationally, the risk there? Because that was the biggest thing for me.
It's going to vary depending on what countries you deal with, but the Dominican Republic is a pretty pleasant country. There's not a lot of civil unrest there, and there's a few lawyers there that I've gotten turned on to who kind of really know what they're doing and know their way of the land, and that's what's very important. That you have an attorney there that knows the business environment there, and you have a business partner in the people that I invest with in terms of the properties that have got their act together. So it was pretty seamless, to be honest with you, very seamless. I mean, I met other people who had done it before as well. So that's another thing. You don't want to be the first person to do it. I've got buddies that's invested in Colombia, South America, and it seems very seamless. Like very, very nice, high quality condos that they've purchased, and they're doing vacation rentals, and there's a lot of demand there. So it's it's pretty seamless. It depends on where you invest, which countries you invest, and how prepared or how set up that country is to do business with foreigners.
That's awesome. That's dope. That's dope. Yeah, I'm hoping I want to get back into the international market sometime soon, but not. I'm good. I'm good for right now.
So what did you invest in Ghana? I love Ghana. I like Ghana.
Ghana was actually pretty cool. So I was doing a trucking business there. So I had a business partner that had a contract for a trucking contract over there, and they had already had a truck and already moving goods. And so my job was to just literally go there, purchase a truck, put it into the business, and then just literally add another truck to the fleet. And so that was it. But something went left with the contract, and that was it. So lost some money with that. It was a hard lesson. It was a very expensive lesson, but it was one of those things where at the time I'm only 31, right? So I was still in my 20s. I was like 27, 28, and I swung big. It's one of those things where I was like, all right, if this play hits, like this is going to be pretty big. And then eventually I was just like, things started to turn a little bit. And I think ultimately, when I look back at that decision, I know where my mistake was. And the mistake was I took my eyes off the money. And that's what it was, because of, just trust here and there. And ultimately, I allowed somebody else to control that aspect of the business without having eyes on it. I'm cool with you being able to control it, but I need to be able to see it, because if there's something that goes left, cool, I need to be able to see it so I can check you or have a conversation about it. Well, there was too much trust, right? So now that's a lesson. So the rule of thumb is trust but verify.
Right.
Now I implemented that into like more business philosophies. All right, I trust you, but let me verify what you're saying. Because at the end of the day, like I can't allow you or your indecision to take both of us down just because you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
So just hard lessons.
Yeah. So that completely makes sense. I really enjoyed, being in Ghana. I thought it was a really cool environment,
beautiful country.
I want to spend more time there. I think there's a lot of potential growth there. Just trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Oh my God. So it's so much opportunity there. One, it's a cash business. Over there, everything's cash. There's no credit.
Right.
People don't realize it's nothing but cash. So if you got cash, you can do really well over there. And it's like when you go over to Ghana, I would say it's like going back in time in a sense of just technology, and you see the opportunity, because it's like, dang, I just went back in time like 20, 30 years because you can see all the opportunity for business that they don't have yet, because we have it over here. Right. So we have certain things over here that they don't have. And it's like, you know what? All I got to do is just this, and this. And it's so simple to us because it's so accessible. But to them, they don't have it. So they don't have an idea of what this could do for them. When just different technologies. So yeah,
Right.
Ghana's pretty dope. Ghana's pretty dope. I like
Yeah.
Ghana.
Yep. So I advise everybody to go take a trip there and have a good time. I mean, go check it out. It's like it's a great experience. It kind of
Oh,
feels
yeah.
like I felt like it's like you're home now, so to speak. You know what I
Yep.
mean? You felt like you're home,
Yep. Yep.
just because all the blackness and all the, and they're living really good there. A lot of people have a particular perception of Africa, and when you go there and experience it, it's completely
Yeah.
different than what one would think.
Yeah. I saw some buildings over there and I was just like, is this Africa? I'm like, what? Like, am I in Africa right now? And so I actually like going there actually like showed me, because I studied international studies in college, but going to Ghana allowed me to understand what a third world country or a developing country looks like. So what that means is like, yeah, they have skyscrapers, they have all these buildings, but then they might have some dirt roads right by it. That's a developing country. So they're still actually developing. They're building their business centers and all of that infrastructure. So it's definitely an interesting experience. My next question for you. Next question is, what do you consider your greatest strength as a leader, and how have you used it in business?
Yeah, I think that my greatest strengths in business is, I think it's like I always have a sense of when I need to worry, right? And I get moving before I need to, right? So I always find a way to kind of stay ahead of what's going on, so, and that's allowed me to stay in business for 20, 25, going on 26 years. Is that, when you're in business, a lot of people think like, oh, I want multiple streams of income. And when they think of multiple streams of income, they think about multiple businesses that give them this income. But it's hard to manage multiple businesses, right? And so, and even one business over time can kind of get outdated, can lose its steam, can all of a sudden the services you offer are no longer, cachet anymore. So it's real easy to kind of lose your edge within your business, especially when you're in business for long periods of time. A lot of guys have already exited. I have a guy who's kind of a mentor. He sold 2 businesses and I'm still on my same business, right? So you'll find that a lot of guys that are good at selling businesses, they'll run them up for maybe 7 to 10 years. They'll turn around and sell it and they'll open up another one. Me, I'm still sitting on my same business. So I hope to sell it one day. And it could be over the next 2 to 5 years that I position it for sell, which, is going to allow me to, just kind of enjoy my life more. But now I have a management team that's running it. But I've always had a sense of where we needed to be with the business before we needed to be there. And so that's what kept me in business for 25 years. And so for those of you that are listening that want to open a business, that is part of the game. You've got to keep the business alive. Or else you never position it to sell, or you never generate enough income out of it to make it a business that can support you for the rest of your life. And so I've always had that internal thing inside of me that says, hey, we need to get moving. We need to start pivoting. We need to start going in a different direction, or else the things that we're hunting and gathering now is going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Feed us in the future.
Oh yeah. That's a pretty good take. When I was at AT&T, one of the things that I learned from them was just because AT&T's been in business over 100 years. So when I look at big businesses, I'm like, all right, how do they stay relevant? How do they stay in business? And so I'm like, all right. So they, when I was there, they purchased DirecTV. Then they sold it right when I was leaving. And so I look at these things, I'm like, okay, so they're always looking at different assets for the future, because like you said, sometimes, products can get old, products can get stale, and I find myself, even in my business, I get bored. I'm gonna be real. I get bored. So I don't know if I'm probably the type of guy that'll build a business up in 10 years and sell it, Do you find yourself getting bored with your business? Because I think people have this idea that you're just supposed to be madly in love with your job. And I just don't think that's true.
Right. Well, it's funny. You can't, that can't happen. After a while, you lose your passion for the business or the thing that you're doing, and it can happen. But if the business is doing well and making money, you tend to not lose the passion. You tend to not lose your passion for it. So, but but it can happen. And, that's when, if you're able to kind of hire a really good management team that can grow the business and do a better job than you can, then by all means, that's what you should do. I'm in that position now. I've been grooming a management team to take over my main tech business, and they're in place now. So I just kind of help set the trajectory for the year, and I go and do quarterly business reviews to make sure that we're on track. So, those are always options. And that's what's so great about assets. When you build up quality assets, there's always options.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how would you define success today? And then how has that definition changed as you've grown?
Well, the general discussion or the general definition of success is achieving that which you set out to achieve, right? So it's not about an amount of money. It's not about an amount of money or about about amount of net worth. It's really whatever you set out to do is really the basic definition of success. But to me, I think that if you can get to a place where your money is doing the work of generating your income, and you could sit back and spend your time doing the things that are most passionate to you, I consider that a success. So some people could do that by working as a teacher and retiring and having a pension that covers their lifestyle, or some people can work in corporate America and get to a point where they're retired, and are doing what they want to do, if it's serving in their church or in their community. So it varies for each person. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as for me, if I can get my assets generating the income so I don't have to, and I have the time to just manage my assets and it doesn't take all my time, then I'm good with that. And fortunately, I've been able to get there. But I've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I love it. So success is, I know it's a definition that, just changed for me, because at first it was just like, all right, I just want to make money, right? I just want to get a bunch of money. And then it was like, oh, I want a family.
Right.
And then the definition shifted, and it's like, all right, like I have to do this for my family that I want one day. And as I've grown, now it's like, all right, now I'm understanding what I want, how success is obtained, and all of these different things. I want to actually talk to you about the Fed, the Federal Reserve, man. They've been doing a lot of craziness. I know you keep up with the market. So obviously, like, you're in real estate. I follow the real estate market pretty closely. So first question is, obviously you have a lot of property, you have a lot of assets in that industry. So has that affected you when I'm talking about the rates, interest rates going up and the Federal Reserve? Because when you have big cash, that typically doesn't affect you because you're not dealing with interest as much if you're a cash buyer. But if you're dealing with commercial properties, you got to deal with bank loans. So you still have to deal with interest. So how has that affected you, if at all?
Well, it's affected me positively, and what happens is that when you build up a portfolio of assets, whenever the feds do this, it can when you have a variety of assets, it can benefit you in some ways, and it can be a detriment in other ways. So in terms of buying properties, and because interest rates are higher, and your mortgage is typically going to be a little bit higher, it makes it harder to buy more profitable properties. But in terms of owning residential properties, that other landlords aren't going to be buying other properties, and you also know that rents are going to be going up because tenants aren't going to be leaving to buy properties given the interest rate hikes. So now you're able to increase your rents and generate more income from your properties. So that's why I said that it's a blessing and somewhat of a curse. But when you have a lot of assets, regardless of what's happening in the economic conditions, you can find some benefit there. It's just a matter of, is my real estate doing better? Is my business doing better? Or what?
Yeah.
Right? Or is it time to sell some properties because, valuations have gotten really, really high, but I never really sell much of anything. So,
right. So, and with that, and that's actually a good philosophy. So why don't you sell your properties? Like, because for me, like, I sold my Airbnb, right? And I'll tell you what my thought process behind that was. Mm-hmm. So, when I sold the Airbnb, I was like, all right, I was up crazy amount of money. I was like, all right, this just makes no sense not to pull the trigger on this because I'm an investor. I'm an entrepreneur. So I was like, all right, what are my goals? What do I want to do? And so I knew I wanted to, leave AT&T and go into entrepreneurship full time. So there was the asset, there was the liquidation, and there was the path. So I set down that path. But ultimately, why would you sell and why wouldn't you sell? What would keep you from either decision?
I'm going to take a step back and add another piece to that question too, is that when interest rates are going up, if you notice treasury bills and interest rates that banks are given for CDs have gone up.
Yeah.
So now I've been able to buy some T-bills at 5% interest rates for 1 year. You get what I mean? So
people don't even know what that means, man. People have no idea what you're talking about.
Yes. Well, the government has these bonds, these treasury bills, treasury bonds that you can buy on the open market at treasurydirect.com. They give you 5%. So, I bought some of those. So if I have money that's not, if you have money that you're afraid to put into the stock market because the stock market's so up and down right now, you can get a good 5%, right? Which is a decent return as opposed to less than 1% that you're getting in a regular interest-bearing checking account or savings account. So, so there's always that situation.
Not to cut you off, but that's you mentioned returns. Because I think that's so important to ask a guy like you, what are some of your rules when you're looking for return on investment? Like how much are you looking for like a standard, like, all right, this is a good return. I'll pull on this.
Right. Well, I wrote about this in my book. And I like 7% is my number, because in 7%, with 7% returns, every 10 years, you're doubling your money. So I always evaluated as to whether or not I can get 7%. I'll take a 6% and a 5% sometimes, especially if it's rental properties, because I know within a year or two, I'm going to increase my rents. So I'll eventually get to my 7% or more, right? Okay. So that's what I really like. That's the floor before I would say I'm going to put the money to work. If I'm not going to get that, it's almost like not worth it, right?
Yeah.
That's what I look at.
Yeah, 7% is not bad. I've heard 10% is really, really good. Obviously 5 is pretty good as well. I just think obviously the industry. So what industry has shown you the most return? What industry is giving you the most return for your time?
Well, to be honest with you, entrepreneurship always does if you're successful, right? So based on, so entrepreneurship has always been the biggest return. And it is, if you're successful at it. But outside of that, the stock market has performed better than the real estate market historically. And if you look since 2007 to 2019, we've had an unprecedented run up, and the market has kind of averaged, crazy numbers. It's kind of thrown the average stock market returns up to 10% when it was typically about 6%. So then after that, real estate does pretty well too. But the name of the game is, and I talk about this in my book, is you want to be diversified across everything.
Yeah.
Right. Because various times of the market, certain things are doing better than other things. And so when you have it all, you benefit regardless of what's happening with the market.
Yeah. And that's good. I know you talked about, dollar cost averaging in your book, and always being able to buy assets, even stocks. So can you explain dollar cost averaging and how it can, benefit the average person just trying to break into the industry and invest?
Yeah, the whole objective with dollar cost averaging is to basically buy at the average price, right? So, there are two ways of looking at it. You could buy at the top of the market. Like if you had a whole bunch of money and you poured it into the market in just one day, right? You could be buying at the top of the market, right? And then it could drop the next day and you could realize significant losses. Ideally, you want to buy at the lowest price, but you can't pick the lowest price because that's the place where you can earn the most money. So by dollar cost averaging it, it allows you to almost buy at the midpoint by buying it in small pieces regularly, like every month or every week or you pick a frequency and you just buy consistently during that time. It's exactly what I do. I've had money sitting on the sideline and people are all stressed about the stock market being down. And I'm dollar cost averaging. I'm slowly layering money, more cash into the market. And then when the market kind of takes off and drives up again, that's how you win. And so that's the right approach And that's the way to balance your risk. It's a combination of diversification, investing in a whole bunch of things across different sectors, and as well as investing frequently. Because I'm a long-term investor. I'm not a trader. I'm not the kind of guy that goes in there and tries to time the market and time of getting in and getting out. I don't do that.
Right. And that's why I like your investment style. I like that about you. You're not a day trader. You're not telling me, hey, Josh, go invest this today and flip it tomorrow. Like, that's not the game plan here. Your game plan is more like, look, you need to always be buying assets, always be buying stocks, bonds, and then 5 years from now, it's more a compound. Your approach is more of a compound approach. And so, one, that lowers your risk. For all you day traders out there, that lowers your risk. For real, because after a year of doing it, even after a year dollar cost averaging, if you buy consistently, you still gonna have more assets and more stocks at the end of the year. And I guarantee, and it's less work you got to put in. You can focus on other stuff. You don't have to actively manage it.
Exactly.
So, you
buy quality? You just buy super quality stuff. You just don't worry about it. I mean, it's like I said, I'm the kind of guy that I make more money in my business or doing real estate kind of stuff than sitting there watching the stock market. And, there are guys who go to Harvard, go to Wharton, the best schools of the country, right? Who try to master the stock market and still fail at doing so. So my whole point is I got an MBA, but it's not from Harvard or Wharton. But the whole point is that I don't think I can do it better than them. And I'd rather spend my time doing something else than analyzing stocks and that kind of thing.
Right. And I agree with that. Because I've definitely, as I've gotten a little bit more experienced as an investor, I've looked at more of a fundamentalist approach with some technical, obviously technical variables, but the fundamentalist approach is definitely something that's more attractive just because I don't want to trade every day. I want to more so like look at something like, for example, so for people who are listening to the podcast and you have a full-time job, let's say you rocking out, you working a job, cool, keep your job. But here's what Seth is saying. Dollar cost averaging allows you to build assets while you're working a full-time job. Dollar cost averaging allows you to actually be an owner of other companies while you're working a full-time job. So if something ever happens, you got a real nest egg that you can lean on. So now there's your emergency fund. That's how you build assets over time. And so I wish I would have done that earlier on, but definitely started to implement that in the last year or so when it comes to dollar cost averaging. So that's all the questions I have for you today. I did the Iconics 10 last time. I don't have to do it again. But what would you like to tell people? You know what? We got an event coming up. So talk about the event and let us know where to find you.
On Friday at Raymond James, it's a book signing book. We got the Marquez Valdez Scantling, MVS, that's going to be in the house. Raymond James is a sponsor. Mr. Tampa is a sponsor. Sad reality is it's oversold. We've oversold, man.
Let's go.
So if we do another event, we'll have to, you guys will have to stay tuned, stay connected on my Instagram at Millionaire Money Moves. But it's a sold out event. We're going to have over 250 people that are going to be there. We're excited about it. Going to do some book signing and talk about igniting Black wealth.
Let's do it. Guys, as last time, I put all of his contact information in the show notes. So make sure you go click on that. So if you want to purchase his book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Wealth? Go ahead and cop that. Definitely a good read. And Sid, thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity, my brother.
All right. Have a good one.
Okay. Take care.